Hey everyone, and welcome to this edition of Just Parlays. I'm Jim Williams along with Chris King, and we are here today and ready to have some fun. Lots of stuff going on today. Chris just told me earlier, and I apologize for not knowing this. I know I should have. Today is the USFL draft, and if you care, you got to get a life, folks. I'm telling you that right now. Absolutely got to get a life.
Well, they're going to have rounds 1 through 12 today. I mean, and they're doing a snake draft even. So, I mean, it's like playing fantasy football only with, borderline, fringe, almost guys that could play in the NFL.
Okay, if you can't get a hold of your insurance man, there's a very good chance he's trying out today in Birmingham. Okay, these guys, it's not fair for me to say this, so I'm just going to let it go. We'll miss it, Chris. We'll find out somewhere, somehow, someday, who's on these teams. They're all playing in a pod in Birmingham, Alabama. It's a made-for-TV sport. And
you mean you're not going to bet on the USFL, Jim?
On whether or not it lasts or whether or not that it. Look,
you're not going to bet on the Philadelphia Stars.
Back in the day, I, was pleased to take money for directing USFL football games. I had no problem with it. I liked the USFL. I thought it was actually quite a fun league to do. There was a lot of good teams. There was a lot of crazy places to go and things to do. But this incarnation of the USFL, again, it's a made-for-TV thing. If some of these guys can make it to, the NFL, then God love them. But, I just think it's I just can't find. I don't like football that much that I'm willing to watch guys who I don't even know who they are.
But come on, you took money to watch Coy Bacon and the Washington Federals lose every week, and Coy Bacon was probably coked out of his mind.
Well, wait a minute. The Washington Federals from the USFL?
Yeah.
Yeah, that I didn't do any of the Federals games.
Darn, you missed out on all the excitement of how they found new ways to lose every week.
Well, that was not uncommon in the league. I remember, man, I think Rick Neuheisel was coaching the San Antonio Gunslingers.
Yeah, Clayton Mange's team.
Yeah, and I recall them having a slight incident. Every time they scored, there'd be a guy in the end zone who would shoot off, these 6-shooters, right? And evidently, at one point in time, there was live ammunition because when he shot, it ricocheted off of something. Thank God another one was hurt, but that was crazy. I mean, you could go to some serious crazy doing USFL. Now, there's great teams in USFL.
Yeah, I remember reading about how Manges they kept holding off the checks and everything else, and then Neuheisel said that when they got the checks, it was basically, Smokey and the Bandit, everybody trying to run to get to the bank first before they ran out of money.
Yeah, Rick tells a great story about almost getting in a car accident as 4 cars attempted to get to the drive-in window at one of these banks at the same time, and basically almost knocking each other off the, out of the parking lot. But yeah, it was. Now it was again. Now there was fun times. Burt Reynolds and the Bandits down in Tampa Bay. That was a good team. Jacksonville had a good team.
Fred Bullard on them.
Yeah, they had a good team. Houston had a hell of a team because I'll tell you what, Houston, if there was no Houston, there would not be Jim Kelly and there would not have been, the success he had at Buffalo because Mouse Davis and how he set up that offense is pretty much the same offense that he used when he went to Buffalo. So right. there was quality football there. You had to look for it, but it was there.
And you had the Stars with their defense, led by Sam Mills, of course, the late Sam Mills, and Vaughn Johnson, I think, was there too.
Yeah. And they had that team, ironically, in the USFL trial, Had it not been for one former president of the United States who will remain nameless, there would have been a team, Baltimore and St. Louis would have received franchises because that was going to be the deal. But it ended up not being the deal. And so ironically, the Baltimore Stars, who never played in Baltimore, who played in Philadelphia first and then played in Annapolis, were the Stars. And then a team to be named, it wasn't St. Louis because St. Louis didn't have a team in the USFL, but one of the teams were going to be folded into the league. One of the Western teams are going to be folded into the league. Might have been New Orleans. It might have been Oakland. It might have been one of those teams. It was relatively good. As a matter of fact, Steve Young is still getting paid by the guys who owned the LA team.
Bill Oldenburg.
Yeah,
I'm sure Evan has great stories about him too.
Yeah, 40 years of deferred money is coming, still coming to Steve. So,
well, look at Bobby Bonilla. He gets paid until 2035.
Right. Yeah, the Mets money.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I understand in baseball. I mean, you have a contract like that, you want to offload it. But anyway, we've gotten a little far afield here.
And look at that, Ryan said he's going to Vegas next week. He's going to watch his Sharks take on the Golden Knights.
Hey, Ryan, that's good.
Does that mean you rescheduled because you were going to go to spring training, if I recall, Ryan? So since baseball's not doing anything, did you decide to pivot and go to Vegas instead? And Joaquin, good to see you up there. Hope you're doing well up there in the Northeast. Hopefully there's no more snow, but knowing where you live and knowing how the weather can be up there, you can probably be buried.
Let's go to the Mid-America Conference, speaking of snow.
Ryan said exactly that's because hockey isn't canceled.
This is good. Ryan, I hate to burst your bubble, and believe me, I'm a big baseball fan, but
I was going to ask you if you had any new news about that.
Yeah, if they don't come to a resolution within a week, maybe 10 days, then don't count on the season starting on time, which is March the 31st.
Which is the last thing that baseball needs at this point.
Yeah, I mean, this is crazy, but, crazy is baseball. What can I say? They had meetings yesterday in Port St. Lucie. They lasted for 5 hours. There were some minor agreements that were, cobbled out by both sides. But at the end of the day, none of the real serious stuff has been touched, and I don't know that it will be.
We need to get Boris on here to get his take.
Boris's take is being very well represented by Max Scherzer and 6 of the 10 people who are on the subcommittee that's involved in this, because 6 of them are represented by excuse me. Take over a second, Chris, while I get some water here, buddy.
Right, like Jim was saying there are 6 of the 10 people are represented by Boris. Now, Andrew Miller, is he part of that 10-person committee again?
Andrew Miller, I don't think so, no.
Okay.
Paul Goldsmith, one of the guys. They're actually doing it at Roger Dean Stadium, which is where the Cardinals and the Mets, Cardinals and the Marlins have their spring training facilities. It's North Palm Beach County. It's up there in Jupiter, where the late Burt Reynolds, who we just spoke of, used to have a house and a dinner theater. So all of that in that Port St. Lucie area. It's we'll see. We'll see how it pans out. But I don't think, the key issues have to do with obviously some sort of upping the revenue sharing, the potential of getting rid of or altering the luxury tax. And then, of course, there's the ability of getting to become a Super 2 quicker, so that you can get to free agency faster as a younger player. All of those things are, at this point in time, intractable from a standpoint of the ownership. They want no part of it. And they are saying that they've lost money for the last, payroll has gone down for the last 4 years. Of course, 2 of those last 4 years were affected by the fact that there's been no gate. So that does have something to do with it. So we'll see how that plan pans out. But long and the short of it, guys, 7 to 10 days. If we don't get 7 to 10 days, we're not going to have an opening day in baseball. And I have a feeling that the players and the owners are pretty locked into their positions here. And unless something really intense gets involved here, we might be in for a much shorter baseball season this year, as much as it pains me to say that.
Well, and like we said before, this makes everybody that likes baseball, everybody that's involved, players and the owners, losers. Who it makes a winner of is Gary Bettman, because he can say, hey, look, we're still playing and you guys aren't.
Well, who was it just said it from the group? Ryan, right? Ryan said, I'm not going to Florida to hockey. He's going to go for baseball. He's going to go out to Vegas to watch his San Jose Sharks play the Golden Knights. So
right, but I mean, just think about how far Rob Manfred's profile has fallen, where now you're falling below Gary Bettman on the job performance scale, because Bettman has done nothing of value in 3 decades in the National Hockey League. We had the lockout in '94 that led to that protracted season. You had you lost the entire season in 04-05. You've had other hiccups along the way. But now Bettman looks smart because of the fact that, they survived the bubble last year and everything else. They survived playing into August.
He's got a heck of a TV contract, which is good for the team, for the league.
Well, for hockey, it's a heck of a TV contract, but comparatively speaking, it's nothing compared to everybody else.
Well, you have to remember he also has a TV contract with Canada, and that's a chunk of money that baseball and other sports do not get. So it's not as bad a contract as it looks when you add the component to the Canadian component to it.
Yeah, but the guys their teams still aren't getting $300-400 million a year in TV revenue.
Well, no, I mean they're not, and the sport at this point in time doesn't show that the eyeballs that on a national level, the eyeballs that warrant that kind of money. They do very well, they do very well locally, like for Chicago, for instance. And you used to live in Buffalo. Buffalo, fantastic numbers.
Yeah, you know why? Because nobody goes to the arena in Buffalo.
Yeah, well, the amount of money they get from TV locally in Pittsburgh and Chicago and Buffalo and some of the truly good hockey areas is pretty substantial. So, the Penguins get more money locally than the Pirates do.
Well, that's not saying much. The Pirates,
well, I know the Pirates haven't exactly played well, but I'm just saying if you're talking baseball versus hockey,
right,
local level, they're there, and the Blackhawks, and certainly the amount of money that Toronto gets from that contract that they have with Rogers is ridiculous.
Yeah, it seems like every game's on Sportsnet 372.
Right. Well, there used to be a Sportsnet 360. Maybe that's the one you're talking about. Anyway, meanwhile, the Akron Zips are going to play the Bowling Green Falcons tonight. Are they playing in Akron or?
That game is in Akron.
Okay.
Tough break for Bill. He said he took the bait on North Dakota. They're playing right now in one of those always exciting 1 p.m. tip-offs against St. Thomas of Minnesota. At the half, St. Thomas up 41-30. North Dakota was going off as a 1.5-point favorite. Hey, Bill, I don't understand these midweek tip games that early in the day.
I was about to actually explain that. Because the weather is so bad in the Midwest this time of the year, a lot of these schools they don't take charters, they have to take buses. And I know that you guys know from reading the newspaper that, over the years, thank goodness no one's been hurt, but there's been a few pretty bad, accidents, bus accidents. So what they try to do when you're in the Dakotas and Minnesota and some of these places where, it gets pretty treacherous this time of year from a weather standpoint. They play the games earlier, so that the bus trips can be done in hopefully in the light.
But
So
don't you think that a 1 p.m. started on Tuesday can throw off the rhythm of some of these players? They're not used to playing, or in this case, it would be a noon tip off because it'd be in the central time zone.
right,
Don't you think that would throw them off?
I'm not going to say it wouldn't, but I think I understand the reason they're doing it because of from a safety standpoint.
Oh, I get that. I'm just saying, could that be part of the reason why North Dakota's played so lackadaisically in the first half of that game?
It could be. I mean, it could be. I mean, remember, if you're going to play a noon basketball game, you're probably up at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, to get ready for the game. To have the team breakfast and to get off to the arena and all that sort of thing. And so, basically, you're this is lunchtime for you. It's not basket. You're not ready to play basketball. You're ready to you're ready to have lunch.
Yeah, I get why Bill went with North Dakota. I mean, St. Thomas came in; they had lost 12 in a row, and they lost by 8 at home to North Dakota a couple weeks ago. On the flip side, North Dakota's not a whole lot better. They've lost 15 of their last 17 games. So a rough game to tune in for, with neither team having a whole lot of hope going forward this season.
Mm-hmm.
But hopefully, it turns around for Bill in the second half.
Yeah. Well, hang in there, Bill. There's always two halves.
But as far as our good buddies from Akron, the Zips finally starting to get it back on track. They picked up a win over Eastern Michigan over the weekend after, stinking out the joint for several games in a row, including that game against Kent State where they lost by 2. Then they lost by 4 in overtime to Western Michigan. Then they lost by 3 to Northern Illinois. How they lost back-to-back games to doormats like Western Michigan and Northern Illinois is beyond me. Fortunately, they get a Bowling Green team today that can't play defense to save their lives. Bowling Green, 353rd in scoring defense, 80.1 points a game. They've given up at least 91 in their last 3 games, including a game where they give 112 to Buffalo. They're facing an Akron team that's very good on the defensive end of the floor. They've given up 66 points or less in their last 8 games. Bowling Green is going to have all kinds of issues. Here's Bowling Green's problem, Jim. They don't play defense. So what does a team that doesn't play defense do? They try to run. I got news for you. You can run all you want. If you're giving up baskets like there's no tomorrow on the other end of the floor, and you can't shoot 80% from the field, you're going to lose.
Yeah. And it looks like they do. I mean, they're 0 for 4 against the spread in the last 4 games. They're 0 for 4 in the last 4 games as an underdog. They're 0 for 5 in their last 5 games, the team with a winning record. Okay.
Yeah, you look at their numbers. In the last 7 games, they've given up 91, 78, 76, 94, 112, 91. Their one game that was decent was against Northern Illinois, who can't score, and they gave up 65. But, I mean, you're giving up a truckload of points, and they're running at the second fastest tempo in the nation, averaging almost 74 possessions a game. But you're letting the opposition shoot better than 50% from the field.
Well, the part, okay, let's just break this down real quick. If you don't play defense, okay, and you run, okay, what does that mean? That means you're getting odd man rushes, to use a hockey term, the other way, right? You're getting 2-on-1s. You're getting
3-on-2s.
You're getting numbers. You're getting numbers going the other way. Numbers going the other way is going to beat you every time. So you can run all you want to, like you said, but if you're not scoring at the other end and the other guys are coming back and putting it up, then that 8 points that the Zips are giving away tonight against Bowling Green really doesn't look like that is anything they got to worry about.
Especially when you look at the first meeting when they played at Bowling Green, the Zips won 91-66.
Ugh.
So, I mean, Bowling Green, they had a promising start, but they've gone right off a cliff because they can't stop anyone. I'm just looking at their conference numbers. They've given up at least 80 points in conference play. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11 times in 16 conference games, they've surrendered at least 80 points.
Well, they're right out there in that area. Bowling Green is out there where you're right in that little tip of Ohio, where you can easily get to Indiana, or you can easily get to Michigan, or you can easily go back the other way.
Yeah, and fall into Kentucky, which is where half the time I think Bowling Green is.
Yeah, that's the other Bowling Green.
Right.
The But Akron, one of the reasons Akron has had some decent basketball teams in the past is they get a lot of kids who might have gone to Cleveland State, or maybe would have gone uh, to Ohio State or some of the Big Ten schools. There, a lot of kids come from the same high school that LeBron went to, and
Right.
some of the other schools. So they get a lot of good city kids, as the old saying they used to say back in the Big East days. A lot of city kids playing for the Akron Zips. So the Zips tonight look like they're going to be a winner over Bowling Green, and we're going to stay in the
One
stay in the
one last number about that, Jim. Think about this. Akron, we said Bowling Green is second in tempo.
Mhm.
Akron is 349th,
in
and they
tempo.
still put up 91 points in the first meeting. Could you imagine if they ran at Bowling Green's pace for 40 minutes? They probably could hang 150.
They probably could. Now we're going to Buffalo, right?
It's actually going to be in
It's in
Miami of
Miami.
Ohio. So it's in what, Oxford?
It's Buffalo. Yeah, Oxford.
Yeah, Buffalo, the Bulls 5-point favorite over the Redhawks. Now, the Redhawks did win the first meeting at the Alumni Arena. They took a 91-81 win at the very end of December. At that point, Buffalo was a disjointed team. Jim Whitesell was in the COVID protocols, so they had an assistant coach running the show. They were minus a couple of their players. Buffalo has bounced back with a vengeance. They've won 6 in a row, 10 of their last 12 coming into this one. And we just talked about Bowling Green with the way they like to run. This one's going to be a track meet. I mean, Miami of Ohio, 77th in scoring offense, 75.2 points a game, 159th field goal percentage, 122nd in two-point shooting. They knock down better than 9 threes a game, and they're 8th in the nation in free throws at 78.8%. Meanwhile, you've got a Buffalo team that is 8th in the country at 81.4 points a game, 74th in field goal percentage. They shoot 53.7% from two. They knock down almost 9 threes a game. And the big thing here, Buffalo kills people on the glass. They're second in the country, averaging 14.1 offensive boards a game. They're second overall in rebounding at 42.8 boards a night. Josh Mballa, David Skogman, guys like that. It's going to be a handful for Miami of Ohio to contain. Buffalo 9-3-1 against the spread in their last 13 on the road against teams with a winning home record. They're 11-4-1 in their last 16 after an ATS loss. That's because they were favored by 19 against Eastern Michigan and only won by 14 or 15. Sorry, it was Central. Was it Central or Western? It was one of the geographic.
One of those directional schools.
Yeah, it was one of the geographical Michigans. It was Western. They beat Eastern on Thursday. That's what we were doing when we were doing the show.
Let me ask the question from the standpoint of being around the Buffalo area. Has the Buffalo area embraced being part of the MAC?
Yeah, I mean they really like the MAC, especially in football. You look at a few years ago when Buffalo made their first bowl game since the 60s or whatever, when they went to the International Bowl and lost to Donald Brown in Connecticut. They've really taken to it. I mean, and as the team has had success in recent years, it's been even better for them. I think having Bobby Hurley there before he went to Tempe helped. Not only helped Buffalo, it helped the conference as a whole because you had a marquee name, that you could point to. And then you had Nate Oates, and now Nate Oates, of course, is down in Tuscaloosa. But again, you had another name you could point to as a guy who had success. And you look at some of the rest of these guys in the conference, and they're overlooked. But, it's a good conference when you get right down to it. And it's going to be a cluster come tournament time because you look, Toledo and Ohio are both 13-3. Kent State is 12-4. Buffalo's 10-4. Akron's 10-6. So you've got 5 teams right there. Any one of them could be cutting down the nets come the end of the MAC tournament and punching their way to March Madness.
Well, and the other thing, too, with regard to the MAC has been that because the Big Ten has such high regard for it, is the MAC has been a multiple bid conference every year to the NCAA tournament. It's been a good thing for them. They've playing in the shadow of the Big Ten has not hurt the MAC at all. It's actually helped them.
Yeah, and ask DeAndre Ayton in Arizona how much fun it was playing that Buffalo team a couple of years ago when they got whipped in the first round of the tournament, went home. Ayton
Yeah.
went on to be the first pick in the draft by the Suns, but he didn't have any fun in March Madness.
Check your mic there, Chris. I think you turned it down by accident there, buddy.
I don't. Well, it's showing that it's still on.
There you go. There you're back.
Now Ryan has a question, Jim. I don't know if you can answer it or not. He wants to know if BetMGM allows online betting in Vegas.
In Vegas?
Yes.
I'll look up. I'll tell you what, Ryan. You hang out there, buddy. I'll look it up for you. And Chris, we're gonna go to the NHL. While
Yep.
Chris is talking NHL, I'll look it up and see if you can do BetMGM. I think you can, but let me check it out.
Right, and we're going to talk about the St. Louis Blues going on the road to face the Flyers. Everybody knows that we try to fade the Flyers as much as possible because, let's face it, they're not very good. The Blues come in 29-14-6. They are 11-8-4 on the road. The Flyers 15-25-10. Overall, they are 8-12 and we'll check here 8-12-5 at home. Flyers have lost 5 in a row. They lost yesterday in the first game of a back-to-back. They lost 4-3 at home to Carolina. Flyers are really good at putting together losing streaks. They have 2 double-digit losing skids already this season, and they're halfway to another one. Tonight they faced Jordan Binnington for the Blues, 11-10-3 with a 335 goals against, an 898 save percentage, and 1 shutout. He's going to get the start over Ville Husso. As of right now, they're saying it's going to be Martin Jones. Carter Hart was supposed to start yesterday. He was scratched with an eye infection. I haven't heard anything different as to whether he's magically improved or not. Let me double check here. They're still showing Jones as the probable, which is a big boost for St. Louis because Martin Jones has not won since December because he's a terrible goaltender, and one has to wonder how he still has a job in the National Hockey League, given the fact that he can't stop a beach ball most nights. You get right down to it. You look at the Blues are an effective offensive team. They're 5th in the league in goals per game at 3.53. They're 8th in goals against. The Flyers are 28th at 2.56 goals a night. They're 26th in goals against. The Blues 6-0 in their last 6, playing on 2 days of rest. They come off that 6-3 win over Toronto Saturday night. They're 14-4 in their last 18 as a favorite. Meanwhile, the Flyers are terrible. They are 3-14 in their last 17 in the second game of a back-to-back situation. They're 2-9 in their last 11 at home. I don't care if you go and get Bernie Parent and put him between the pipes. The Flyers aren't going to win games at this point of the season. And you have to wonder, are they going to get rid of Claude Giroux? Might they try to deal James Van Riemsdyk? Obviously, they need a rebuild here, and they're just going to tack another loss onto the slate as the Blues mop up the Wells Fargo Center ice with the Flyers.
I just found out for Ryan, you can bet with your MGM app in the state of Nevada. Now, somebody had asked a question. I don't know, Chris, if you have the comments up there about FanDuel and DraftKings in the state of Nevada.
Yeah, Ryan said FanDuel and DraftKings don't allow it in Nevada.
Yeah, the reason they don't is simple. And that is because in the state of Nevada, one of the reasons that we have sports betting in states around the country now is because, for all intents and purposes, there hadn't been a quote-unquote brick and mortar building sports book in those states. Okay, so because MGM and Caesars and a number of other sports books were established in the state of Nevada, that's why DraftKings and FanDuel are not available in the state of Nevada, because that was a brick and mortar situation, and to protect the brick and mortar institutions like MGM and Caesars, they've got state protection, as they should in the state of Nevada. So if you're in Nevada, we strongly recommend, as we always recommend, that you use our buddies at BetMGM, and if you can't do that, use Caesar Sportsbook. Both of them are good, and both of them are sponsors of ours. So by all means. So that answers your question, Ryan, buddy. You can indeed.
Or just give all your money to us, and
You can
we'll
do that.
invest it in pizza and snacks.
There you go. All right. So from St. Louis and Philadelphia, where it's clear the Flyers will let down the fans again in Philly.
You have to wonder if they'll throw batteries.
I don't know. They do have a good. They do have a good mascot. He's not the fanatic, but he's getting a lot of people are liking him. So,
Yeah, that's true.
that.
Maybe they'll start throwing batteries at Gritty.
They could. You never know. All right.
They did throw snowballs at Santa Claus and booed him at Veteran Stadium.
True. Well, thank God the Veteran Stadium's not there anymore.
The only stadium that had its own jail.
That's right. And and trust me, there were people in it. So for St. Louis and Philadelphia, we move on.
We're going to move to the Canadian Tire Center north of the border, Jim, as the Minnesota Wild go on the road to face the Ottawa Senators. Minnesota 31-13-3. They're 15-9-2 on the road. Ottawa 18-26-5. They're 9-15-2 on home ice. It'll be Cam Talbot 19-10-1 with a 291 goals against, a 911 save percentage, and one shutout for Minnesota. It was going to be Matt Murray. He's out as he's with his wife, who's giving birth to their child. So congratulations to him. So it'll be Anton Forsberg, 10-8-2 with a 278 goals against, 916 save percentage, and one shutout for Ottawa. Philippe Gustafsson will back Forsberg up. Neither goaltender is overly impressive. Meanwhile, they have to deal with the Minnesota team that is third in the league in goals per game at 3.81. They're 20th in goals against at 2.98. Ottawa 26th in goals per game at 2.63. They're 22nd in goals against with 3.16. The Wild 4-1 in their last 5 when their opponent gives up 2 goals or less in their last game. They're 17-5 in their last 22 against the East. Meanwhile, Ottawa just 1-5 in their last 6 against teams with a winning percentage above 600, and 0-5 in their last 5 at home. You have to feel for the Sens. They seem to be righting the ship and putting together some positive momentum, and now you got to run into a Minnesota team that just beat up, like Ryan said, they beat up Edmonton. They should go on the road and beat up Ottawa as well. The Wild right in the thick of that crowded Central Division with a whole bunch of teams battling for the top 3 spots, which, of course, always makes it entertaining because, you'd rather have one of those spots than have to play in the wild card.
Absolutely.
The wild card team. Minnesota currently second. They're 1 point ahead of the Blues, 5 points ahead of Nashville, who is in 4th place in the division. Colorado, of course, still running away with the Central with 76 points.
And that's with a little over a month left to go in the season. So they there's no time but like the present to get going, because if you don't, you'll be playing golf in come April. But
if you're the Coyotes, you've been playing golf since
you've been
November.
playing golf since October. In their case, getting ready for the NBA to return. Any second half surprises? Any team you look at and say in the second half, keep an eye on this team?
I'm
going to say Philadelphia.
My concern is whether Philadelphia, if those people can actually, if all those guys can coexist, because obviously you've got that issue with, Embiid wants to shoot the ball every possession. Harden wants to shoot the ball in every possession. We said that was an issue with Harden with the Nets. It was an issue with Harden with the Rockets. It's an issue with Harden with the Thunder. If you can't get along with Kevin Durant, how are you going to get along with Embiid, who's a rather mercurial, and that's putting it generously?
I don't know. I just still think keep an eye on Philadelphia. That's all I'm saying. I'm not. I think that for some reason, and I just think that they have the makeup of a team that could be annoying and could very well even be impressive down the stretch if they get their head together, as you said. I'm not stipulating to any of what you said to being not true. It is, but second half surprises. That's why they call them surprises. And that's why I'm saying if I'm going to pick a surprise team, I think a lot of people would be surprised if Philadelphia showed up, as a force in once the playoffs begin.
Yeah, I think you're going to see Milwaukee improve from where they sit right now. They're 5th in the East, but once they actually get healthy, because they haven't had all their key guys most of the season, they've all been in and out of the lineup. Middleton's missed time, Holiday's missed time, Antetokounmpo's been in and out. Brook Lopez has played one game. You have to think once they get healthy that they'll be a force to be reckoned with. My only concern is can teams like can the Bulls hang on with all the injuries they have? Can Miami keep holding out with their mash unit?
No, again, those are legitimate concerns, and that's why I'm saying I don't know. It's one of those gut feelings that you think, okay, well, if you have to pick somebody who's an outsider here, who would be a party crasher, I'm thinking Philly could be the party crasher. Now, are they going to be that? We'll find out. But
Cleveland could be too.
People to play. Sorry?
Cleveland could be too.
Yeah. I thought you said for a minute Lakeland, and I was thought you mean our Lakeland Orlando Magic is going to be a party crasher? No, you're right. That they absolutely could be. And there's a couple teams out west who could show up. Utah could show up and be a party crasher.
Yeah, Utah. What worries me about Utah is that they don't have the wing depth that they need. Losing Ingles was a big blow for them because now you're trying to rely on Royce O'Neal, who's better suited as a defensive guy coming off the bench than a starter. But Dallas has played better. I'll have to see how they adapt in the second half. I mean, granted, they played well without Porzingis. With Doncic carrying that team on his back, but can he do it for the rest of, what do they have left, 20, 23, 25 games? Can he do that long term? Or will the Mavs crumble with him trying to shoulder the load?
I don't know. We know Phoenix is going to be there. We know Golden State's going to be there. I got one for you. Is there going to be a team from LA there?
Right now, they're sitting both in the play-in slots. The Clippers are 8th. The Lakers are 9th. So the Lakers would have to win 2 games to get the 8th seed. And the Clippers, if they won in the first playing game, they would get the 7. But it's going to be ugly because you don't know what's going to happen with Paul George. You don't know if Kawhi is going to make it back at all. And the Lakers are just horrible. Anthony Davis is hurt again. He's going to miss another 3 or 4 weeks. That just means you're going to get Westbrook jacking up shots because, they don't have to worry about the ball going into the low post to Davis all the time. And that's going to be – it'll make for interesting basketball. For a lot of people making memes of Westbrook throwing up shots that hit the side of the backboard or air balls or, nowhere near the basket.
Well, it looks to me like the Athletics' second greatest player of all time may not make the playoffs this year.
That's right. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar will not make the playoffs this year. Neither will Bill Russell.
I thought LeBron was their number 2 guy.
Yeah, he is, but that doesn't mean I agree with their list.
Oh no, I'm not. I'm saying them. I'm not saying you. So, all right. Well, let's go for 2 for the money. We got some fun stuff here on the 2 for the money side.
Yeah, we already. Well, there we go. Yeah, they're all games we've talked about already.
They were so good, we didn't want to have to show them to you again.
Yeah, the Zips, like we said, Bowling Green can't stop anyone. They've given up 99 points a game in their last 3. The Zips are top 25 in scoring defense. They don't need to score a ton of points to beat you, but hey, they already hung 91 on Bowling Green earlier this season. The Zips should walk this one home and win by double digits again. And if they don't, then John Gross has got some serious problems in his program and needs to turn things around with the MAC tournament coming up. Buffalo, we talked about, they won 6 straight, 10 out of 12. They're out for revenge after losing to Miami in the first meeting. Buffalo won't be looking ahead like they did then because in the last meeting when Buffalo faced Miami, Ohio, their next game was against Akron, so they were probably looking ahead a bit. After this, they've got a home and home with Northern Illinois, which is not going to intimidate anybody. So that should work in Buffalo's favor. Just to look ahead, the Red Hawks will also face doormats down the stretch. They get Central Michigan twice, Eastern Michigan, and then sandwiched around a game with Toledo. But I like Buffalo in this one. We talked about the Blues and the Flyers. The Flyers are horrible. They might as well bring up their AHL team at this point. I'm sure the Phantoms could put up better performance than the Flyers have. And the Wild over the Sens because, let's face it, Ottawa doesn't win at home. And Minnesota plays good hockey.
Absolutely. All right, so 2 for the money. Let's play 4 for the show.
Right, I'm going to go with the Islanders. Barry Trotz's team. They're on the road against the Kraken. I know the Islanders lost to Montreal the other night, but they're due to bounce back. Facing a Seattle team that has all kinds of issues probably works in their favor. I'll back them here. San Diego State and Boise State. Well, you see it's 121 points. You'd think this was an IUPUI game, but it's not. I'm looking for this one to go under the total. Do you know why? Jim, the first meeting this season, January 22nd, at the Viejas Arena in San Diego State. Final score was Boise State 42, San Diego State 37.
Now, San Diego State 37?
37. 42 to 37. Just to look at the
Did
shooting.
Did they come out the second half, or what was the?
Yeah, it was. They were actually ahead 23-22 at halftime.
They only scored. Oh, man,
they scored 1 point in the opening 10 minutes of the second half.
San Diego State's a good basketball team.
Yep. Just to look at the shooting percentages in that game, Boise State shot 14 for 45. San Diego State shot 16 of 57. The difference in the game came at the free throw line. Boise State was 9 of 11. San Diego State 1 for 5. Sadly, San Diego State trailed by 11 with 10 minutes to go, then scored 13 unanswered points over the next 8.5 minutes. So Boise State went 8.5 minutes with no points.
And still won.
And scored 7 points in the last minute 28 to win. So they combined for 79 points. Now, you look at the numbers as to how these teams play defense. San Diego State comes in ranked. They're first in defensive efficiency, according to KenPom. They're second in scoring defense. They give up 57.1 points a game. Opposing teams shoot 38.1% from the field. That's 8th in the country. 43% from two-point range. That's 10th. 29.8% from 3. That's 30th in the nation. Boise State comes in. They currently stand 9th in scoring defense at 59.7. Their teams shoot a robust 41.8% from the field against them. That's 106th in the country. But yeah, 79 points in the first meeting. I don't see them somehow magically scoring 40 plus more points than they had in the first meeting here. So I'm looking for this one to stay under 121. Kent State over Ball State. Ball State doesn't stop anybody defensively. Kent State has won 8 in a row after falling to 9-9. They're now 17-9. 1 game behind Miami and Toledo and Toledo and Ohio in the MAC. As for the under in the Tennessee-Missouri game, because Matthew's asking about it, I just think I went with Tennessee there because I think that Missouri, Missouri's not going to play defense the way that Arkansas did against Tennessee. Tennessee coming off a 58-48 loss. They're not going to shoot 4 for 24 from three-point range. They're going to shoot 12 of 35 from 2. Let me see what the total is on that one because I haven't looked since this morning. Let's see. 130.5. Let me just take a look here. Tennessee. I don't know. That's going to be tricky because Tennessee in their last, if you throw out the game against Arkansas and their 5 before that, they were averaging, 171, 243. They're averaging better than 78 points a game in their previous 5 before running into Arkansas. Missouri, I know they play some gritty defense, which is good because they don't play offense. Their last 5 was, let's see, 36, 193. They're averaging just under 60 a game. So if Tennessee puts up anywhere near their average and Missouri sticks to their, we're going to score 60 a game, that would put it at about 136, 137. I don't know. Based on, what we were talking about with Allie yesterday, I'd probably lean towards that one going over, just based on the way those numbers average out. But I mean, it's a judgment call because you never know. You never know if Tennessee's going to shoot bricks like they did the other night. I'd like to think they won't. Because, they had 76 against Kentucky, 73 against Vanderbilt, 72 against Mississippi State, 81 against South Carolina, 90 against Texas A&M. I know Missouri is tough defensively. Let me just see what they've done recently in head-to-heads. Of course, they've split the last 8 in regards to the total. Last meeting was last January. It was 73-64, went over the 132 mark. I'm going to lean towards the over here, but like I said, it could go either way. It's one of those fickle numbers.
Okay, cool. Let's go to the entire menu for the night.
Yeah, I'm going to go with UNLV. Like Allie told us yesterday, fading Steve Alford is a full-time job. And Nevada is, not necessarily a great basketball team. We saw UNLV put the boots to Nevada in the first meeting this season. They won 69-58. The game wasn't that close. I know I watched it because there was nothing else on TV on that particular Tuesday night. I think, you have to consider, again, UNLV, and, we talk about Colorado State a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Colorado State is 21-2 against everybody else, but they lost twice to UNLV.
Well, there you go, right?
They lost by 14 at home. They lost by 21 on the road Saturday. Now, UNLV, Bryce Hamilton has played really good basketball. I know that you could see UNLV looking ahead a little bit because they got Boise State Saturday, then they have Wyoming next week. But I like them here. I'll take the points against Nevada just because, let's face it, Nevada has not played good basketball. Sure, they've won 3 in a row, but 2 of those were against San Jose State. And nobody's impressed when you beat them. I know Grant Sherfield is hopefully going to play again. He missed some time with an ankle injury. But still, Nevada's not at a point where they should be giving points to anyone at this stage of the game. The exciting game of the night, Jim, in the Big West. That's right, Cal State Bakersfield, 1-10 in the conference, taking on Cal Poly, also 1-10 in the conference.
Somebody's going to be 2-10 when the night.
I know you're really excited about this matchup. I know you have it set on your DVR so you can watch it over and over again. I'm going with Cal State Bakersfield, even on the road. They won by 13 at home in the first meeting. Both teams have been bad. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Cal Poly comes in with 6 straight losses. Cal State Bakersfield comes in with 9 straight losses. But hey, somebody's got to win. Might as well go with the team that's already won. Richmond over George Washington. That'll be up in your neck of the woods there, Jim. I know you're a big fan of the Colonials. Not sure where it ranks on your favorite nicknames, but Richmond looking to bounce back after getting crunched by VCU. George Washington just hoping that the season can come to an end sooner rather than later. I think that Richmond will pick up the win there. Yep, I'm going against Dartmouth again, Jim. I know they burned us last week when they decided to beat Cornell because I guess Cornell decided to leave their jerseys at home or something.
Off, yeah.
But I think, Yale has played well since they flipped over to the Ivy League play because they struggled in the early going of the year. Like we said last week when we talked about taking them over Penn. They beat Penn Friday night. They lost to Princeton Saturday, but nobody's going to fault you for losing to Princeton with the way the Tigers have played basketball this season. I'm going to take Yale on the road and hope that Dartmouth got the winning out of their system. the other day because they also beat Columbia on Saturday. But again, Columbia is not very good. After all, 2 of Dartmouth's 4 conference wins came against Columbia. So there's that.
Yep.
Arkansas and Florida. I was surprised that this one was a pick'em, basically. What do you make of that? I know they're playing at the O Dome or whatever you want to call it.
Well, Florida got healthy-ish, and they took out Auburn earlier.
Saturday.
So on Saturday, so I think they're looking at this and going, well, you got 2 teams that are relatively the same. Arkansas should be favored, you would think, by more than what they are, but Florida's at that point in time where they're just healthy enough to scare the living daylights out of people. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to beat them, but it does mean that they are healthy, and Florida hasn't been healthy all year. So,
true, but I mean, I'm also looking at Arkansas has won 11 of 12. They beat LSU on the road. They beat West Virginia, but not that that's saying much this year because Bob Huggins' team has fallen off a cliff. They beat Auburn in overtime. They beat Tennessee Saturday, like we said. Their one loss in that stretch was a 1-point loss to Alabama, and nobody's going to take anything away from what the Crimson Tide have done. Meanwhile, Florida, who have they really beaten other than Auburn?
Well, Auburn at the time was the number 1 team in the country, so that's
right. But Auburn was the number 1 team in the country when they faced Arkansas too, and they lost to Arkansas.
No, I'm just saying. You asked me about Florida. Florida's gotten healthier. Does that mean Florida's going to win? If you're asking me, no, I don't think they are going to win. But I'm just saying, the number down? I think the number's down because Florida's healthier and playing decent basketball.
What do you think this number would be if they were playing in Fayetteville?
Probably 5.
You think so?
Yeah.
I'm just looking,
What do you think it would be?
I thought it would be more than that a little bit, just because I'm not convinced Florida can win on the road. I thought it would be more like 7 or 8, but we'll go conservative. You're probably right because the bookmakers don't want to make it too palatable for somebody to jump on Florida.
Well, I mean, this number is probably going to go up by the time the game play starts. But
I guess my concern with Florida is, they beat Auburn, but remember back in December when we talked about Texas Southern being 0-7, and then they went and beat Florida by 15 in the O-Dome? Again,
I'm not saying Florida's going to win, buddy.
I'm not saying that either. I'm just saying, that's what makes me, skittish about Florida here. Because they can get up and beat a good team, but they also lost to a team from the SWAC that had no wins at that point.
Well, that's why they're not a top 25 team anymore. I mean, at the beginning of the season, they were they were 21 or 22 when the season started, and by the time Christmas rolled around, Florida wasn't in the top 25 at all, and they had been banged around. So I mean, it's a team that, as we said before, they're not big inside, so they're not going to beat you on the boards. And they've been, woefully bad at the backcourt because everybody's been beaten up. So, they're healthy, but is healthy good enough to beat Arkansas at home? I don't know. I wouldn't think so. 1 point is 1 point. I don't know why it's 1 point.
I
mean, you're having
He's
me
not the best killer man in basketball for nothing.
You're having me argue that a team I root for my entire life is going to lose to an Arkansas team. I'm doing my best to make that argument for you, but what can I say?
Well, I mean, come on, you root for South Florida, but you don't defend them.
There's no defending the undefensible.
Well, there you go, folks. Charleston, I like -1. This game, I can understand why it's -1. Charleston has not been all that great on the road, but Northeastern has been terrible all season. I feel bad for Bill Cohn because they've been a pretty good team in the CAA for recent years. My hope is that Pat Kelsey's Charleston team can actually win a close game instead of losing all these ones they lost by 3 to Towson on Saturday. They also have a 1-point loss to Delaware on the books, a 3-point overtime loss to Furman, a 1-point loss to James Madison, a 3-point loss to Hofstra. You see all these close losses. Instead of being 14-12, they could be 20-6. if something breaks their way a little bit. John keeps asking about Air Force and Fresno State. Now, I know that number is not very high, but there's a reason for that. One is Air Force doesn't score. It's gone all the way up to 117.5 now. Offensive barn burner. Air Force doesn't score, and Fresno State doesn't let people score. I know Fresno State, they stumbled of late. They've lost, I think it was 4 in a row. Yeah, they lost. But the 4 teams they lost to are probably the top 4 or 4 of the top 5 teams in the Mountain West. They lost to Wyoming by 2. They lost to Colorado State. They lost to UNLV by 3, and they lost to San Diego State. Here's the thing about that, John. The highest total that Fresno State had in those 4 games, 120 points. And that was against Wyoming, a team that can score. The other losses totaled 115, 117, and 105. Meanwhile, you're looking at Air Force. Air Force has scored, they've actually scored some points, but they've been in track meet kind of games because they played Wyoming, who likes to run. They played Boise State, who likes to run. They played New Mexico, who definitely likes to run because they don't know how to do anything else. They played UNLV. That went over the total, but that was mainly because of UNLV. As for that number about where you thought they went over 117, what did you say, 24 straight times? Not the case. They had a game against Utah State in December where the final was 49-47. They beat Idaho State 59-48 in September, and they beat San Jose State 63-53 in January. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a rock fight. It's not going to be the rock fight of like San Diego State, Boise State, but it's going to be a rock fight that ends up under 117.5. I'd be surprised if it got to 115, in all honesty. That shouldn't say -1.5 on Toronto. It should just be Toronto versus Columbus over 6.5. The Leafs played yesterday. They looked terrible. Columbus scored 7 in their win over Buffalo, but Buffalo's terrible too. The Blue Jackets starting Jean-Francois Berube in net. Good luck if you know who he is. I watched him play the other day. He wasn't all that great. After all, the Sabres scored 3 on him. Look for that to go over. Nashville and Florida, I like to go over the total. We talked about how dangerous the Panthers are on home ice when it comes to piling up goals there. They lead the league in goals per game. Like Matthew said, Nashville could phone it in tonight because they're retiring the jersey of Pekka Rinne Thursday night. And then they have the Stadium Series game following that. So it could be a good night to bet Florida if you're willing to pay the juice on it. I like the Ducks, unfortunately, over Ryan Sharks. But hey, they're going to Vegas, so maybe you'll see them win there. Because when you go watch them play, apparently they win. Just ask Jim in Washington with the game where they just kept pinging it off the pipes. And finally, the Blues over the Flyers, or the Blues and the Flyers over 6. Martin Jones is horrible. The Blues like to light the lamp. That should do over the total. As far as Iowa parlaying with Arkansas, I like Iowa tonight. I think that they can beat Michigan State. Michigan State has not been good lately. We saw them get waxed by Rutgers. They lost to Penn State where they melted down in the last 7 or 8 minutes of that game. I think Iowa should win at home. Jim, do you have any take on that?
Yeah, I think Iowa plays well at home, and it's they're playing Rutgers at home. Is that what you said?
No, Michigan State.
Michigan State. Well, Izzo's team is not Izzo's team this year. I mean, it's just not an Izzo team.
They don't have a go-to guy. Their leading scorer, I think, is averaging 11 and change.
No, and they don't have depth either. So you've got that. So when you got 5 guys who can't get you the points you need to begin with, and you go to the bench and there's nobody to call. Let's just put it this way: Tom Izzo does not have the Flintstones on his side this time. So no, I think a trip to Iowa. It's a nice trip, but they're not going to get home a winner. That's for sure.
There you go, folks.
So there you go.
You heard it from the mouth of Jim Williams, 7-time Emmy winner.
Not the best color man in the business for nothing, right?
Yep, like I said, Jim Williams is a 7-time Emmy winner, giving you the straight dope.
Giving you whatever I can think of. That is a good building though to play in. So if you get a chance to watch it, enjoy the game. It'll be fun to watch. Iowa. I'm sorry, over Michigan State. Any other things out there that pique your interest this evening, Christopher? Before we wrap it up,
Let's see. I mean,
one real quick stat, which I think I want to get your take on. We got about 2 minutes to get this take, so we'll get ready to wrap. Ken Palm, this week, Gonzaga is the number 1 ranked basketball team in the country. And according to Ken Palm, who you are incredibly familiar with,
yep,
they have the highest win percentage over, win margin percentage over their opponents since the 1999 Duke team. So that's when Duke
they obliterate people. I mean,
they're averaging, I think it's 24, 25 points a game in margin of victory, which is a phenomenal margin.
Yeah, let me see. Yeah, it's 24.9. So yeah, you're right. You're right there at that 25 mark.
I rounded up. So
yeah, I know. Yeah, like I said, they destroy people. They have depth. They have.
They got height.
Yeah, they got that too. They don't necessarily beat themselves. I know they had a sloppy game against Pepperdine last week, but I know Mark Few is going to get them to clean up those turnovers. They're second in effective field goal percentage on offense. They're first in effective field goal percentage defense. They're first in 2-point shooting. They're third in 2-point shooting defense. I mean, and they're second in offensive efficiency, sixth in defensive efficiency, and they like to run. So,
and they can.
Right. I mean, you look at the margin, they've beaten. I don't see.
What's the coach at Pepperdine? What's his name?
Pepperdine's coach is Lorenzo Romar.
Romar.
Yeah, he's coach at Washington.
Yeah, he was a great player. I'll leave you with this. Lorenzo Romar said, "If they're not the best team in the country, I don't want to play the best team in the country."
Yeah, because if you look, they have one win that wasn't by double digits, and that was a 9-point win over Tarleton State back in November. And that came right after they lost to Duke and right before they lost to Alabama. Everything else, double digits.
Has been crushed.
Yep.
So there you go. All right. Interesting stat. All right, gang. That's it for today. We will be back on Wednesday with some fun stuff. The NBA returns to the hardwood on Wednesday, so we will have some.
Oh, it's Thursday.
Or Thursday, they do. Not to be confused. Well, you know what we can have? We'll have the latest in the first 7 rounds of the USFL draft. We'll be able to tell you.
Yeah, maybe Johnny Manziel will get drafted. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? I didn't know he was even in there, but if he is, he could be. So there's that. So we'll have plenty of fun stuff for you tomorrow. Get some good basketball, some good hockey, and lots of other stuff. So we shall return. Bring your pens and pencils like you did today. We'll try to get to as many of your questions as we possibly can. So from my buddy Chris King, I'm Jim Williams saying, have a wonderful day. Thanks so much for joining us. We will see you come Wednesday.